a bit of my background. I am Vaishnavi Paul. I have secured All India rank 62 this year, and I come from Gonda, which is a district in eastern Uttar Pradesh. I had done my schooling from Gonda, and after that I went to Sri Ram College of Commerce for economics honors. And after that, in 2018, I started my preparation. After that, so it has been a journey of 5 years, 4 attempts, 3 mains, 2 interviews, and finally a rank. So this was a small brief background. After this, let me just speak for around 10 minutes, telling about whatever I learned from my mistakes, or whatever lessons that I have. And post this, we can have an interactive session wherein they can ask the questions. Okay, so I have a few notes prepared so that I do not miss out on important things. I think preparing for UPSC puts you into habit of creating notes for everything. And this is one of the very important lessons. Let me start with this. For every stage of this exam, please try to have your notes. I was a very old school person, and I used to make short notes, different levels of notes. First level wherein I had detailed notes, second level lesser detailed, and that way it kept on reducing. So note making was important. Finally, let me go attempt-wise. I will first mention the mistakes that I had made, and then I'll mention what I did in the subsequent attempts to improvise on them. So in my first attempt, the biggest mistake was to go for prelims without being mains prepared. Am I clearly audible? Fine. Okay, so please do not go for prelims if you are not prepared for mains. I cleared prelims in my first attempt, but I could not utilize that opportunity very well because I was not prepared with my mains. You should have very short notes prepared for GS, your optional. You must have tried answer writing at least for ethics, essay, and optional. GS you can improvise and write between that time from prelims and mains. Another mistake that I made in my first attempt was ignoring essay. So okay, I also said that I will tell what I did to improvise. A very simple problem was that I did not prepare for mains. In my next attempts, I prepared for mains very well. How did I do this? This we will cover in the subsequent discussion. In the second problem that I had was that I ignored essay. I was overconfident of my writing skills because I used to write a bit, but then I thought that UPSC essay writing is almost like writing answers, writing essays, writing journals. It is very similar, but it is not. And if you can find my 2019 essay copies that I had written somewhere as mocks. Okay, is it clear now? Okay, if you can do that, you will learn really well how not to write an essay in UPSC. My 2019 copies, that they will teach you really well. So please find them and understand that this is not what UPSC is looking for. I scored 110 in 2019, and that was a disaster score because 2019 is when we used to get really high score in essays. Now what I did to improvise on essays is first that I worked really hard on philosophical essays. I used to take up topics every week, and I used to make 20-25 minutes outline of what I would write had this topic come for the actual examination. There is also some few essay perspectives available online. On YouTube, I used to search those perspectives, used to pick up topics from them and then put my mind for 20-25 minutes. And after that, I used to go through those videos to understand that how different was my approach to this topic from what the person guiding me on that topic is trying to teach. This is the first thing that I did. Second was I made a cheat sheet for essay. By cheat sheet, I mean very dynamic and very different examples, very different quotations that you can utilize in your essay. please do not stop yourself from using very interesting stuff like openers from Hollywood movies, or concluding it with some Bollywood songs or some poetry. Honestly, in the last 2 essays, I scored good. I scored 136 in my previous attempt and 124 or 125 this year. And I had started with some Hollywood movie and I had ended with some poetry. Please do that. The examiner would love it. But it should not be that you are writing something totally out of the context. It should match with the topic. And then you have to explain also how you are trying to relate it with the topic. Then, yes, writing a lot of essays is also important. Please realize that essay and GS are 2 very different things. You can improvise on your GS marks by writing very mechanically in that time period between prelims and mains, but it is very difficult to improvise on your essay marks in such a short period of time. You need to work really hard on your essay. And also, everyone is different. Not everyone is similar that some people might have very good writing skills, some people might have a very good philosophical bent of mind, but not everyone does that. So realize your weakness, work on them, create your strength. Then, okay, so this was more or less for my first attempt. I actually did not do a lot in my first attempt, which was the reason why I was out right after mains. In my second attempt, I could not clear prelims. And the biggest problem that I understand was that I walked in the prelims hall with a lot of burden on my shoulders. I thought that, okay, I've given so much time to prelims and to this exam. If I do not clear this exam today, what will I do for the next 1 year? And this led to extreme anxiety. I did not clear prelims. Another mistake that I made in my second attempt was that I did not analyze PYQs very well. After 2020 attempt, I actually analyzed every PYQ. UPSC largely gives you some loophole in almost every answer, or it gives you a hint in your PYQs of what it is going to ask in the future. We have this concept in economics called adaptive expectations. This is something where you learn from your past and that changes your future. This is something that I learned from UPSC prelims paper. And yeah, third mistake that I made was that I did not give sufficient number of mock tests to understand how many questions I need to attempt in the exam. Please give a lot of mock tests. Your target should be to complete around 7,000 to 8,000 questions before entering prelims exam hall. And this you can do by giving full-length tests, or you can give sectional tests, you can give 10 questions whenever you find time, you can do this. So please give a lot of tests. This puts your mind into a thinking action mode, wherein you can solve questions where you do not know a lot about. Okay, then my third attempt, the biggest mistake was that I took certain arenas for granted. So as I told you people that I gave my first mains with very less preparation, but what happened is that I scored good in certain areas. For example, I scored good in ethics, I scored good in my optional. So I ignored ethics and optional in my third attempt, which was my second mains. And turned out that ethics and optional became the reason why I was out of the list in my third attempt. Okay, so another lesson that I learned was that whatever attempt that you are giving, it should be taken as one separate attempt. Your marks from your previous attempt would not get copied in your next attempt. The arena where you were the weakest in your previous attempt can become your biggest strength in your next attempt, or something that you take for granted from your previous attempt can become your biggest weakness in your next attempt. So please do not take anything for granted. Give your best to every section of the exam. Okay, another thing that I did in my third attempt, particularly in my prelims, and this also helped me in my mains, it is very necessary to keep a calm mind during the exam. So I used to do something like this, that when I used to get the paper, in my first 2 attempts, what I did is that as soon as I got the paper, with a lot of anxiety, I used to just open the paper and see what questions have come. And that was, I think it was a bad beginning point to begin with. Eventually, from my 3rd attempt, what I did is that I used to take the paper in my hand and take 5 deep breaths before even opening the paper. And I used to tell myself, I can do it. I have worked really hard for this. And I call upon all the knowledge, wisdom, patience that I had gathered in this journey to come and help me write this paper today. And then I used to sit very comfortably and do whatever I could with that paper. Another thing that I did not do in my 3rd and 4th attempt, and which I think is a very important thing, is that please do not analyze the paper while you are attempting it. What happens with us is that we solve 5 to 10 questions and then we start analyzing, oh, is the paper easy? Is that paper difficult? Please don't do that. You will have a lot of time after the exam to analyze it. You should have something to do after the exam as well. During the exam, every second is precious. Just imagine, it is so competitive. The second that you are wasting on analyzing the paper, someone else is very nicely utilizing that second to write a very good point that the examiner will give marks on, and this person would be in the list. So it is very important to channelize all the energy, all the time that you have during the exam on just solving the paper, doing your best. We almost all of us must have played some sort of games growing up. In games, what happens? You don't know what will happen right after. You are given some tools and you have to utilize those tools in the best possible form to win over the situation that is thrown at you. I think that is what this exam is like. Then once again, keeping your mental and physical health is something that I ignored till my first 2 attempts, and that I did well in my 3rd and 4th attempt. I think most of us ignore our physical and mental health because we come with this idea that I need to do only this thing today. I only need to study and study and study. It does not work like this. This exam is such a long race. Even if you clear it in your first attempt, a lot of people do it. But even if you do it in your first attempt, you need at least 1 year of preparation. You need at least 1 year of examination cycle. How do you expect your body and mind to work for around 2 years if you are not giving it healing breaks? So that is why I think that physical and mental health is very important. Please do not ignore it. Keep a very balanced schedule. That would help you, and this would help you in exam as well. You will see that your ability to handle things, your ability to handle questions, your ability to keep your mind calm under various situations, and given the unpredictability of this exam, would improvise. So please keep your mental and physical health very nicely. Please do not ignore people in your life, good people who act as your support system. You can ignore people who pull you down. That is much needed. You need to develop a very thick skin, and anyone who tells you you cannot do this, okay, fine, we'll see. Maybe I cannot do it, but then I will try my best. That is what we need to do. No one knows that they will make till the end. I did not know that I will clear it in this attempt, and it is very difficult. It is very unpredictable. But then what option do we have? After knowing all this, if we are in this journey, it means that we are people who have a dream. It means that we are people who are ready to work hard. So these 2 things are sufficient enough to put aside any negative comments that we get. Okay, lastly, I'll talk about what different that I did in my 4th attempt that I think helped me sail through. And these are some very practical steps. First would be daily answer writing. From prelims till mains. So before prelims, when I say that you should be mains ready, it means that you should have short notes for as many topics, at least for the important regions of your preparation, which includes your optional, which includes important arenas like polity, economy, environment, like this. So after prelims, what you can do is you can even shorten those notes, very short notes that you can revise very quickly. And after that, you should begin with daily answer writing. What I used to do is I used to write 5 GS answers every day. And then I used to write 1 ethics answer from section A and 1 ethics case study from section B every day. 1 optional answer every day from paper 1 and 1 optional answer from paper 2. This was for every day. At the weekends, I used to write 1 full-length test for optional, 1 full-length test for ethics, and on some weekends, not every weekend, 15 days, I used to write 1 essay as well. But during the week, I had this 20-25 minutes cycle wherein I used to make outlines of certain essays. So I think this answer writing, consistent answer writing, wherein you are thrown a question and you just think on the spot with whatever you know, it helps a lot. This is one different thing that I did. Another was that I had this cheat sheet prepared. I have this folder called quality enrichment folder. And what I do in that is that I have compartmentalized sections on very important data, diagrams, case studies from GS1, for GS1, GS2, GS3, ethics, and also for essay. Various quotations, examples, anything that would add value to my answer and would improvise on my marks. And I used to revise this quality enrichment folder for about half an hour every day. Half an hour, whatever I could revise, I used to revise on it. Apart from this, I learned another thing in my 4th attempt, that we need to approach this exam with this idea that anything unexpected can happen in this exam anytime. When you expect the unexpected, you go in with a very calm mind and you do the best you can. So this was largely what I did, what I learned from such a long journey. Now I think you people can ask questions, whatever questions you have. Anything? My optional was economics. Anyone from economics optional here? None? Wow. I know it's a very rare optional and we don't get a lot of marks, but okay, no problem. Yes, please go ahead.
How do you cross-check your answers? Daily you used to write a score of your answers. How do you cross-check your answers? Like have a written that right or wrong? What it said to you, how do you used to do that?
So after writing this exam for about 2 times, you yourself start understanding that this is a good answer, this is not a good answer. But I know that this is not a very good idea, because I really hope that you people don't have to go through such a long journey. So for this, I had joined this platform called Convert IAS, wherein I used to send my questions every day and they used to check and send it back. Apart from this, there are a lot of model answers available for any PDF or any question that you pick up. So from those model answers only, you will understand that, okay, this is the point that could have been added. This is what it could have made the answer better. Third thing is that, and this is something that is very important, you should not rely a lot on coaching corrections, because not every copy would be checked very properly. So you should have your own personal analysis of how you are writing, and this can be done well through topper copies. One disclaimer that I would add is that if you are referring to any topper copy for understanding how to write an answer or how to present your copy, please make sure that you are visiting the topper copy of that topper in the year that they had topped the exam. For example, for me, 2019 copies, if you pick up, as I said, you will learn just one thing, how not to write an answer. So that is the thing. And another thing is, you can also go through the mark sheets of different toppers. Not every topper is good in every subject. Go through their mark sheets, see wherein they have done good, and then learn from those copies. So learn from the best. Does that answer your question? Anything else? Sorry? Okay, her question is how to manage current affairs preparation. So for current affairs, we have prelims, we have mains, and we have interview. Firstly, I'll talk about prelims and mains. See, there are two aspects to current affairs. One is you need to be very aware of what is going on every day. For this, you need to read newspapers. I used to read one newspaper throughout the year, that was the Hindu. I've heard from my friends that Indian Express is equally well. You can choose whatever suits you well. Apart from this, during interview stage, I added Mint as well because economics was my optional. But now coming back to, should you make notes from newspaper? No, I did not make notes from newspaper because I think that many coaching institutions already compile a lot of material and they do it even better than what we can make notes for. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Someone has already done the compilation work, just take help from there. But what I used to do is, I used to pick examples, data or some case studies from the newspaper that I knew that no coaching compilation would have, and this I used to put in my quality enrichment folder. This is what I used to do for newspapers for current affairs. Apart from that, I used to read one monthly current affairs compilation. You can pick from anywhere. I used to refer to Vision monthly compilation, but I think almost everyone does almost the similar job, so you can take wherever you are comfortable from. Then for when prelims is closer, then you can have yearly compilation of current affairs, that would help. And similarly for mains, again you can have the yearly compilation of current affairs, that would help. Apart from this, something very important that has come in the newspaper, and you think that this topic is something that if you write in your exam, it would help. So just go back to your notes, or your mains notes or your prelims notes and add it there. This was more or less what I did for current affairs. Is that fine? Anything else?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What was the strategy for revision? Because we make multiple notes for like prelims and mains, but sometimes we miss on details which is required for prelims and mains. What was the revision strategy?
So I made separate notes for prelims and I made separate notes for mains. When we pick up, I'm really sorry, I need to go back to the current affairs question for interview. I'll answer your question after this. So for interview, current affairs become very important. See, suppose we are having a discussion and on the other hand, you're writing a mains. Suppose one question comes in your mains examination, which is for 10 marks, and that is from current affairs. Suppose you cannot answer that question. What will you lose? 10 marks? But if we are sitting in the interview panel board room and the interview panel asks us something which is too much in news recently, and you cannot answer that question, A, that leaves a very negative impression, and B, it is a conversation breaker. If you could have answered that question, it would have created a good cycle of a very good conversation. So for interview, current affairs become very important, and for interview I used to make direct notes from newspapers because I had to update them. So this is what I wanted to add for your question. And you asked regarding revision. I had separate notes for prelims and for mains. I have seen some of my friends create digital notes, but I used to create pen paper notes. And for prelims, I had very quick notes wherein I used to cover just important facts about any topic. I never went into details. But for mains, for the same topic, I had separate notes wherein I went into a bit of details. Then I had 4 layers of notes. When I say 4 layers of notes, they get created with 4 cycles of revision. So for my first time when I'm revising and creating notes, they would, for every topic, suppose I pick up a topic on DPSP, then I would have 2 pages of notes for DPSP, wherein I would have some static portion from Lakshmikant, then I would have some current affairs portion from the current affairs magazine that I'm taking, then I would also have some quality enrichment material from newspapers or some topper copies that I had gathered, and then I would create 2-page notes. Then in the second round of revision, I used to shorten these notes. Then I would make single page notes. Okay. In the third round of revision, I would make then DPSP would be on half of a sheet, and lastly DPSP would have just 1/6 of one side of the sheet, wherein I would just mention the important things like articles, data, diagram, that if a question on DPSP comes, I would utilize all that in my answer to write. So with multiple revisions, I used to shorten my notes so that the next revision becomes easier, and I also do not miss on the important things that should surely go in an answer if the question is asked. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
I don't know whether it is a silly doubt, but I just have this doubt.
There is no silly doubt in this exam, and we all have so many doubts. I think whatever doubt you are going to say, I must be having that doubt somewhere in my preparation.
Actually, so with regards to the current affairs publication, firstly, for the first 2 years, I ignored newspaper reading on regular basis. The problem which I faced is that whenever I was trying to revise this monthly magazines, I was not able to retain something at the end. So I used to read, but I used to feel I did not get anything out of it whenever I go for the first round. So in terms of revision or in terms of how did you manage that?
See, if you're reading a monthly magazine and you're thinking, see, whatever you read for the first time, you will never be able to recall it in the exam directly. You need multiple revisions. We all have human brains that have limited capacity. Now, also, if you're thinking that you will be able to revise those 12-15 monthly magazines right before your mains exam, that is also not possible. So as I mentioned that I used to make 2-sheet notes for every topic. Now DPSP would be covered in, say, for example, 5 to 6 months from the 12 months that you are using. Now when you are seeing this current affairs magazine, there's something, only 1 or 2 point addition that you need to add in your notes. If they go in your notes, then say for example in January DPSP was covered and you find only 2-3 points that are extra from the notes that you have already created. So just add those 2-3 points in your notes, and January magazine you don't need to revise again. Same goes for, suppose in August once again DPSP was covered. Again add 2-3 extra points that were mentioned, some recent current affairs that was mentioned in your original notes. And that is why I say it is very important to smartly compile your notes and shorten them in every revision cycle. Because when you see 100-page notes to revise, it is very difficult. When you see 10-page notes to revise, you also get motivation. Okay, this is all I need to do and I will go do very well. So I think multiple revisions with very scientifically created notes, shortened at every revision, and then writing answers so that you can recall whatever you have written in your copies, whatever you have learned in any of the current affairs magazines, that would help. Does that answer your question? Okay, so we are done, I think. This is a very good question. I think this is a very good question. See, and I think that I'm not the first person who is saying this. It depends on the quality of the number of hours you're putting in. But it also does not mean that you can clear this exam with just 2 hours of preparation every day. Okay, this is not possible. So I'll tell you what my routine used to be. See if you can make anything out of it. I used to divide my day in 3 slots of 3 hours each, wherein the first slot would go to current affairs. I used to read newspapers and take out whatever notes, as I already told you, from them. And I used to read current affairs magazines in those 3 hours, and if possible, making notes from them. Current affairs magazines, okay, not from newspaper. The second hour would go for, the second slot would go for learning something new or something static that I had not covered. And the third hour would go for practicing or putting my knowledge to application, be it prelims test series, be it mains answer writing, anything like that. And this thing, whatever I'm putting in these 3 slots can change depending on how far you are from your preparation. And within these 3 hour slots, I used to say, for example, 3 hour slot has 3 slots of 1 hour each. For that 1 hour, I used to study for 50 minutes and then take a 10-hour power nap. So what happens is that if you just sleep for 10 minutes right after studying, A, you wake up with a very refreshed mind, and B, whatever you have studied, it gets stored in your brain very nicely. So this is what I used to do. I used to take a lot of breaks. I used to listen to music, watch web series, play with my pet, whatever can heal you, because it is a very tiring exam, and especially when you're giving multiple attempts. So study, but then please allow yourself to heal.
English is very good. How can we improve on that? Do they have any English?
Okay, I would take that as a compliment, but honestly, see, this exam does not require your English to be extra special. Especially even if you're writing this exam in English, or if you're giving your interview in English, you just need to be speaking in a very simple language. So as you spoke right now, it was good enough for this exam. It was in fact better. And what I have observed is that this exam tests your knowledge, your understanding, your values, and your ability to analyze more than your language. So if you're asking for this exam, I would suggest there is no need to improvise a lot on your English. But if you're asking in general, you can watch some English movies, you can listen to some English songs, you can read some English books, you can communicate with your friends or family in English. Maybe that can help. Anything else?
Anything else? I have 3 questions. First question is, at present, I don't know whether you've seen the newspaper, CSAT newspaper. Actually, they should have asked that question. So since they didn't ask, I'm asking that what should be the strategy for the prelims exam now? Since the elimination is quite eliminated as everywhere it is going around. That is one thing. Second is, what is that one thing that separates a topper from the rest of the crowd? And third, obviously about my institution, our institution, what was IASbaba's role in your journey? Because they should also feel confident and safe sitting there.
Okay, so the first question, I don't think that I'm very qualified to answer the prelims question, because I did not see the entire paper, honestly. I was myself very scared when I saw the first 10 questions, that what has happened. But honestly, after some time, this is what I understood, and this is something that happened with me in 2020, because in 2020 also they changed the pattern somewhat, not as drastically as they did this year. This was very drastic. One thing that I learned is that this exam is never going to get easier. It will keep on improvising and becoming harder year after year. So what is our solution? The solution is that we can improvise ourselves and become better. I can understand that elimination might not work, but then we would have to develop strategies that can help us to solve papers. So solving multiple question papers on the pattern that now UPSC is asking can help. Secondly, multiple revisions would help. Whatever question comes, if say for example 12,000 people are qualifying, we should have the confidence that if 12,000 people would qualify, my name would be in that. And how would you develop that confidence? That would come only by multiple practice. So as I mentioned, solving 7,000 to 8,000 questions before you enter the exam hall, that is very important. There are many open mock tests available, all India open mock tests available right before prelims. Please write those tests. If you see that you're scoring in top 1 or 2 percentile in those all India open mock tests, then you would have that confidence when you enter the exam hall. Whatever be the paper, if 15,000 people qualify, I would be in those 15,000 people. And thirdly, I think nothing beats practice, nothing beats consistency in your preparation. So whatever happens, consistency and practice would help. Apart from this, I need to go through the paper and understand to answer that. So second question was what separates a topper from the crowd? See, I cannot say that this is the final or perfect answer that I'm giving. But one thing that I had observed when I was not a topper in the past 3 attempts and when I am a topper in this attempt is that I realized that this exam is not a game of only knowledge or hard work. This exam is a game of a value system that we need to develop. By using that value system, we will perform much better in this exam as we would perform without this value system. And I think that there are 4 or 5 very important values. One is discipline. Even if you don't feel like studying today, it does not matter. You have to study. If you have created a timetable, you have to fulfill it. That is the discipline needed. Consistency, very important. Suppose you study today for 16 hours and then you don't study for 3 days. Consequently, you will fall to a level wherein again rising to that initial level would take 1 week of your effort. That is not smart work at all. That is very poor planning. Third is that this exam requires very honest self-introspection. Please be honest with yourself. Please do not be egoistic. And fourth is that this exam is a game of patience. You have to be patient with yourself when you're not scoring good in mocks. You have to be patient with others when they're trying to suggest you something that you can do to improvise on yourself. And then lastly, you have to patiently wait to see your name in that final PDF. So this, I think, answers the second question. And the third question regarding IASbaba, I took mock interview in my last attempt. It was a panel mock which really helped me. And then Mohan sir's contribution is very important, which I need to mention. I took a 1-to-1 mock with Mohan sir in my previous attempt and he suggested me some very valuable points. Another thing which was very important and that I need to mention is that in my third attempt and in my second mains, as I mentioned that I did not get good score in ethics. I had scored just 87 and at that time I was not linked to IASbaba in any way, but because of the interview I was connected to Mohan sir. So I just texted him and I told him and I sent him my copy and sir was very gracious. He went through my entire copy. He gave me a call and even though I was not linked to IASbaba at that time, he gave me a call and for I think more than half an hour, he told me step-by-step pointers on what I was doing wrong in my ethics paper and how to improvise on that. So even though I did not take up any other thing after that, but I think that pointer, that honest conversation that I had with sir, it motivated me to self-introspect because I was overconfident with my ethics. It helped me to self-introspect and all those small pointers, they helped me to improvise. And I think apart from that, some very good open initiatives like Secure Initiative, I used to write a few answers, though I did not write it for a very long time, but for some time I used to write Secure Initiative as well. And for ethics, my marks jumped from 87 to 119 this year. So I think sir has a huge contribution for that.
What about the CSAT?
Okay, again, given this year's CSAT, this is a very important question. So, I will just tell what I used to do. But honestly, once again, with all honesty, I never faced a lot of problem with CSAT because I had mathematics till class 12th. Then I had economics honors, which has a sufficient enough course of mathematics and statistics. So and then I prepared for CAT as well. So I was in the flow. But then for CSAT, please do not ignore PYQs. Please do not take it for granted. Do not think that if in mocks you are scoring 70, 80, it is fine. No. Target 100 plus in your mocks. So even if you fall in the actual exam, the fall would be, say for example, till 80 or 90. And once again, if the exam is evolving and getting tougher, you need to get even more tougher. So there's this very good story or some very good example that I had read somewhere, that when a bird is sitting on the branch of a tree, the bird is confident not of the branch to not fall, but of its own wings, that even if the branch falls, it will fly and save itself. So this is what we need to do in this exam. We need to become so good in whatever we are doing that whatever unpredictability this exam throws at us, it becomes better. So I think CSAT, this is all I know. I did not take very special efforts for CSAT, so I cannot answer it very broadly.
Because not everyone is as good or lucky as with CSAT. Many people are flunking because of CSAT.
So lucky, I think it would be the better word. This, because even actually seeing this year's CSAT also, I was actually thankful that I did not have to give this year's CSAT and prelims as well. I saw the paper and then I thought that I'm very thankful that I don't need to give this year's prelims and CSAT. So.
Fine. There are two things. She missed the felicitation. So we are felicitating her in front of all of you, future aspirants. So we felicitate her. And we usually, every year after we get ranks, we call them, they have a huge event. And the event went very successfully this year. We added the golden farm resort. I think you would have got the feedback from the fellow toppers. So one is the felicitation. The second part is June 18th. That is yesterday we completed 8 successful years at IASbaba. So we'll start with the felicitation, then there will be a small cake cutting, and sweets will be distributed, and you can disperse.
We all look so tired.
Yeah.